Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. On today's show, we're looking into 2020 by looking back at some of the biggest global financial stories that shaped our world. There's only one place to start, and that's with the two largest economies. The US-China trade war, which had simmered for nearly 18 months, has seen the US and China impose tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of one another's goods. US President Donald Trump has long accused China of unfair trading practices and intellectual property theft. In China, there's a perception that the US is trying to curb its rise as a global economic power.
But I will tell you, China is not doing well now, and it puts us in a very strong position. We are doing very well, but we're taking in billions and billions of dollars, and I hope we're going to make a deal with China. And if we don't, they're paying us tens of billions of dollars worth of tariffs. It's not the worst thing in the world. But I think we will make a deal with China. I really think they want to. I think they sort of have to. And I think we're going to have a great relationship. I think that President Xi and myself have a great relationship. Such a great song, we should just let it play, right? We had a little luck with that song. We've taken the toughest ever actions to confront China's unfair trade practices that hurt American farmers and ranchers. This includes China's theft of trade secrets from American agribusiness. I couldn't believe how complicated your business is with the seeds and the genetic farming. It's incredible. People don't know this. But your secrets were being stolen by China and, in all fairness, other countries. We want a fair deal for American farmers, removing China's arbitrary bans on agricultural imports, safeguarding our intellectual property, and providing fair market access to all American producers.
Good afternoon. And these cases make clear that as a country, we have to carefully consider the risks that companies like Huawei pose if we're going to allow them into our telecommunications infrastructure. Today's charges serve as a warning that the FBI does not and will not tolerate businesses that violate our laws, obstruct our justice, and jeopardize our national security.
那么，请问工信部能在哪些方面帮助？
正像外交部所说，在没有任何证据的情况下，动用国家力量来抹黑和打击特定的企业，这种做法既不公平也不道德。作为我们是行业主管部门，我们一贯地鼓励中国的企业按照市场的原则和国际的规则，在遵守当地法律的基础上开展对外经济合作。
I think we'll start by reading the letter that President Xi sent to me and to us. It puts us off to a good foot. And if you could start by reading the letter from President Xi, maybe you could speak louder.
I hope our two sides will continue to act in a spirit of mutual respect and win-win cooperation, and step up consultations by meeting each other halfway in order to reach an early agreement that works for the interest of both sides.
5 million.
You may want to speak up.
5 million.
5 million.
5 million tons of soybeans.
5 million tons of soybeans. Wow.
Per day.
That's
Per day.
great. Per day. That's going to make our farmers very happy.
I am hardwired.
近来呢，我同特朗普总统先生通过电话、书信保持着密切的联系。今天我愿同总统先生就事关中美关系发展的根本性问题交换意见，也是为下一阶段两国关系发展定向把舵，推进以协调合作、稳定为基调的中美关系。
This week, US President Donald Trump hosted Made in America at the White House, highlighting the contributions of entrepreneurs to the American economy. During the occasion, the president signed an executive order demanding that 75% of the value of any Made in America products must be sourced in the US. That's an increase from 50% previously.
There's never been a better time for African countries to take advantage of the New World Order, where we have the Chinese. All over
it's
Africa.
Interesting you say New World Order. Where does America placing this? Because when you hear of New World Order, USA is really kind of on the back burner, right?
Yes. But when you look at the, I just look at the advantages that are meant to come out of this, because China is very aggressive in Africa. While the Western countries have slipped back. If you look at the trade volume between China and Africa in the past 16 years, how it's grown astronomically from 10 billion in 2002 now to, we're talking about almost $200 billion. Whereas it's slipping with regards to the US and to countries like Germany or Europe in general. So it's an advantage for African countries to take advantage of this. I will look at the positives rather than even though we know that behind all of this is the politics. Politics of how the China, Europe and American, trade war. So Africa is almost...
It seems like there's a second scramble. Of course, any investment in the continent is good, but we just want to make sure that they don't take advantage of this. How smart are we? Because we've seen what's happened with China. Now Russia are interested in developing their relationship, their trade relationship with Africa. Do we not need to be smarter? Some of the criticisms and the observations that some people have been having, as we've seen with Mexico and we've seen with China, Donald Trump is America first. And of course, Africa sometimes has been last in a lot of these trade negotiations, so they're particularly worried because Trump isn't hiding it. He wants the best for America.
So this is where the leadership of Africa comes in. If the AU takes a very strategic position and member states key in and then strengthen our policies, regulatory frameworks and the infrastructure investment that we need to really ensure that intra-Africa trade is a reality.
Yes.
The market opportunities are there and it's huge. We can trade among ourselves. Yes, Trump will promote because it's all about what is a national interest. International politics is about national interest.
Yes.
And basically you have to look out for your interest. So what Trump is saying is not new. But the difference is that he keeps constantly, at every opportunity, he keeps repeating the same. But other countries are also conscious that in that relationship, they want to promote their own interest. So now
we need to promote our own interests,
so,
right?
The issues of corruption.
Let's bring Chief Bimbo in.
Every country protects its own interests. That's
really?
Oh yes.
America's diplomatic campaign to limit Huawei's presence in the West has hit their cells in Europe. The telecoms giant did announce strong growth for the first half of 2019. However, Europe is a prime battleground between China and the US. Many of the continent's key markets are still undecided about Huawei's 5G network. This week, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang met with a US business delegation in Beijing as the bitter trade war simmers on between China and the United States. The meeting follows comments made by US Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, who says he's expecting a positive year ahead for the American economy despite the diplomatic standoff. Chinese officials will travel to Washington later this month.
The simmering trade war between the world's two biggest economies cut US imports of Chinese goods by $35 billion in the first half of the year and pushed up prices for American consumers too. Analysis by the United Nations found Chinese firms have started to absorb costs of higher tariffs and cut the price of some exports. The group also warned the long-running dispute is hitting other countries too. The sector hit hardest by the US tariffs is US imports of Chinese office machinery and communications equipment, which fell by $15 billion. Other countries stepped up to fill most of the gap left by China, the study found, naming Taiwan as the largest beneficiary of trade diversion, with $4.2 billion in additional exports to the US in the first half of 2019. Mexico also increased exports to the US by $3.5 billion, mostly exporting electrical machinery and agriculture and transport equipment. The EU boosted deliveries by $2.7 billion, mostly via additional machinery exports. US President Donald Trump has threatened a new escalation of the trade war with China, saying US tariffs on Chinese goods would be raised very substantially if no truce was reached with officials in Beijing. He said, "I tell it to everyone, if we don't make a deal, we're going to substantially raise those tariffs. They're going to be raised very substantially," Mr. Trump warned. Well, analysts say his comments at the Economic Club of New York highlight the trouble the US is having in its efforts to strike an interim deal with China. After Mr. Trump announced that a tentative agreement had been secured in early October, US and Chinese officials have been haggling over the details, including where a deal would be signed and whether Washington would roll back existing levies as part of such a settlement. Further complicating the talks, Chile recently cancelled plans to host two gatherings of world leaders. Those summits had been identified as possible venues for Mr. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping to sign a pact. The US has placed 25% tariffs on $250 billion worth of Chinese imports and 15% tariffs on a further $112 billion worth of Chinese goods, while America is now threatening to slap a new 15% tariffs on a further $156 billion goods of Chinese products in December.
Do you think Trump can do it again?
I think he's going to be a bit challenged this election cycle. I think this is a different election. I think it's a different climate in the country. And I think we're seeing momentum on the Democratic side to launch a candidate who will be successful in November 2020.
You know, there was a lot of friction between the United States and China. And now it's a love fest. That's a good thing. But that's good for China and it's good for us, but it's good for the world.
过去2周，双方牵头人就妥善解决各自核心关切，进行了认真、建设性的讨论，同意随协议进展，分阶段取消加征关税。
Certainly, this Phase 1 trade deal really attacks a lot of the easier issues, but make no mistake about it. We are, in fact, also seeing in this agreement, even though we don't have concrete evidence of it, that they are, in fact, moving in the direction of at least some of the tough issues. The technology transfers, the IP protection, all of those are going to be touched to some extent by this agreement. Not a complete resolution, that will come later on, but again, it gives credence to the view that both sides are certainly trying to engage each other and reduce those trade tensions, which is the right way to go. My suspicion is that that's going to be part of the negotiation, just like we've seen a suspension of tariffs on the U.S. side, a reduction on the Chinese side. As we move into future phases of these trade negotiations, my suspicion is that these tariffs will also be phased back as we see more progress coming from both sides.
Relations may have eased slightly with the postponement of some tariffs, but an end to hostilities is some way off. Firms and their supply chains with any connection to China or America are being forced to make disruptive adjustments, which could eventually spill over into the broader economy. 2020 also has an American presidential election. Any outcome will have profound implications for both the trade war and the economic policy.